The Aussie Report. News and information concerning corruption across Australia.
I think everybody has been patient enough with Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese in relation to their meddling with the Australian electoral system, their undemocratic ways. Scott Morrison giving parties 10 days to nominate rather than a decent period of time which crossed over the Easter period. And what we now hear from the Australian Electoral Commission today through one of our state directors is that the Australian Electoral Commission are saying bulk nominations must be in by Tuesday next week. 2 full days prior to the 10 days legally required to, in the writs that are issued by the Prime Minister, 10 days are legally required for parties to have time to nominate their candidates. And the Electoral Commission have taken it upon themselves to reduce that time by 8 days, to 8 days, for parties that are nominating bulk candidates. So it's clearly a unlawful act. So has been their deregistration of well over 20 parties where they have hoodwinked, and I use that term intentionally, hoodwinked, multiple parties with their fake audit process of measuring a party's membership. And here we have them once again trying to diminish democracy by now arbitrarily determining that parties that have got more than one candidate or wanting to put in a bulk nomination have only got 8 days after the writs are issued. Well, I'm sorry, AEC. You used to be a helpful organisation. You used to promote democracy. You used to promote and help parties to get registered and contest the election for the Australian people. But something's happened in there, hasn't it? You're following a narrative, you're following directives, you're implementing legislation which is anti-democracy. And now, here's the dirty trick, guys. Let's try and make it as hard as possible for any party to nominate its candidates, and let's make the deadline 12 noon after the Easter weekend. Well, that's okay, we'll work hard, but let me promise you this. The Australian people are sick of you, Scott Morrison. The Australian people are sick of you, Anthony Albanese. And the Australian people are going to contest this election, no matter what the outcome. The Australian people will contest it because of the unlawful behaviour of the Australian Electoral Commission. And the unlawful behaviour is unacceptable to the Australian people. The institution of the AEC was to defend and protect and be loyal to the Australian people to make sure we had an honest election. Well, I'm calling right now a dirty election. I'm calling that the AEC are in cahoots with Labor and Liberal, and that the Australian people need to stand up and reject their behaviour, and that the Australian people at this election en masse need to put Labor and Liberal last, because they're grubby, they're dirty, and they have no intention of a fair election. All they intend to do is do things that serve them. Another thing they've done is demand and send notices around. AEC got plenty of time to send notices around to everyone, but they can't answer our calls to answer very, very serious legal questions about the election. And the latest notice they've sent around is that all the parties, particularly parties like the Australian Federation Party and the Liberal Democratic Party, have to now put authorisations on every social media post. Well, go and have a look at Scott Morrison's and every other Liberal candidate's post to see if there are authorisations there. Go and have a look at the Labor Party and see if there are authorisations there. Go and look at the Greens and Adam Bandt in the lower house and see if there are authorisations on their social media posts. You know, the dirty tricks. This is the dirtiest election in Australia's history. Before it's even been run, the AEC are playing a game to make it as difficult for the Australian people as possible to get a fair outcome, and their role has traditionally been to protect the Australian people and run fair elections. Well, we're calling dirty, and just so that we comply with their latest little directive, this is Peter Harris speaking, and this message is authorised by Glenn O'Rourke on behalf of the Australian Federation Party, 101 Collins Street, Melbourne.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me.